How's it going, guys and girls? Hope you guys are all having a great week. So I'm back today with the next installment in my Story So Far video series. This one will focus on the new Tomb Raider franchise. As I'm sure you're all aware, the new Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which is set for release on the 15th of September, is the third game in Square Enix's Origins Reboot series, which tells the story of a younger Lara and her growth from a frightened, insecure young woman into the confident, hardened survivor and resilient Tomb Raider that we all know and love. Given that this is the final installment in a trilogy, it's fair to say that an understanding of the main events and characters in the first two games are an essential requirement if you want to get the full experience when playing Shadow of the Tomb Raider. This first video will focus on 2013's Tomb Raider. In the first game, Lara is a fresh-faced 21-year-old who has just graduated from university and is on her first expedition to find the lost island of Yamatai, home to the infamous Sun Queen Himiko. The island has never been found, and Himiko's existence is steeped in myth and old Japanese folklore. Lara is determined to find the lost island and kickstart her career as a renowned and respected archaeologist. We learn that archaeology runs in her blood, and that her father Lord Croft was also an archaeologist, though he was ridiculed and mocked by his peers for his belief in supernatural forces and ancient relics. He became obsessed after the death of his wife Emilia, researching immortality and hoping to find a way to resurrect his dead wife. His research, wild theories, and eventual supposed suicide led to the Croft name being dragged through the mud. Lara at this point has little respect for her father's work or his beliefs. She remembers him as a crazy old man who lost touch with reality after the tragic death of her mother before taking his own life, leaving her alone. As a side note, it's important to remember this point, as this will be explored a lot more in the second game and in my second video. Let's focus on the main events of the story. The game begins with Lara setting out on her first expedition aboard the ship Endurance to find the lost city of Yamatai. We learn in a flashback told through one of Samantha's recordings that the location of the island has been lost. The crew argue over the suspected location and what path to pursue next in their voyage. With their funding, food and fuel running out, the decision is an important one and could mean the end to their expedition. Whitman believes they should sail west and follow in the footsteps of previous archaeologists, while Lara argues that they must forge a new path and should sail east into the Dragon's Triangle, a dangerous area where ships venture but never return, often torn about by huge storms. Lara argues that the myths surrounding Himiko all talk about her ability to summon huge storms. She argues that myths are usually based on some type of truth and implores the crew to trust her judgment. As they argue over the merit and risks of her plan, Roth steps in supporting Lara's idea, and against Whitman's advice, the ship ventures into the Dragon's Triangle east of Japan. On day 22 of their voyage, while navigating the treacherous seas of the Dragon's Triangle, the ship is struck by a violent storm and split in two. Lara is thrown about her cabin and nearly drowns as the ship takes on water, but is rescued by Roth. She tries to jump to safety, grasping for Roth's hand, who urges her to jump towards him. However, Roth loses his grip and Lara falls into the cold embrace of the waters below. She is pulled under and battered about by the crashing waves, but manages to fight her way to the surface and ultimately is washed up on the shores of a deserted-looking island. Above her, she sees the crew of the Endurance trying to regroup, shouting for help and for each other. Lara tries to shout out to them to let them know that she is alive, though her voice is muffled by the overpowering storm. Before they can see or hear her, she is knocked out by a strange, savage man wearing a mask. Lara awakens, disorientated, to find herself hung upside down in a cave, surrounded by what can only be described as hanging bodies. Lara manages to free herself using a mixture of fire and swinging back and forth, and as she falls, she impales herself on a piece of splintered wood or metal and is left to limp through the cave, searching for a way out. She manages to find an escape, which causes a cave-in, crushing her would-be captor's skull. Scrambling for the exit as the cave collapses in around her, Lara just barely manages to make it to the surface. She immediately sets out to find the other survivors of the crash. In her search, she spots the lifeboats on the beach and finds a radio and Sam's camera, but no sign of her friends. As the rain continues to pour, the night sets in and wolves start to howl. Lara realizes she will have to look after herself first, before she can think about helping her friends. She builds a campfire and finds a bow, using it to hunt. As she is resting by the campfire, her radio starts to work, and Roth's voice comes through, issuing an SOS and asking for a rescue team to be dispatched to their location. Relieved to hear Roth's voice, Lara jumps on the radio, voicing her joy and relief that he is alive. She recounts to Roth the terrible experience that she has been through and her guilt over their current situation. Roth tries to calm her, stating he sent an SOS out from the Endurance before abandoning the ship and that help is on its way. He tells her that the crew are regrouping at his position. Lara pleads for him to come and get her, but Roth states that he must stay where he is for the others to find him. He encourages Lara, stating that she can do this and to believe in herself and in her own abilities. As Lara makes her way through the forest, searching for other survivors along the way, she hears a strange singing. She finds more evidence that the island is inhabited, complete with strange carvings, dead bodies, and ritual sacrifices of animals. She eventually finds her friend Sam with a man called Matthias. He claims to be one of the passengers, a teacher by trade, and a friend to Lara and Sam, having bandaged Sam's foot to help her. Lara is initially distrustful of Matthias, but reluctantly sits around the fire with them as Sam continues to tell Matthias of the legends of Himiko. As Sam continues her tale, Lara, exhausted from her ordeal, starts to let herself relax and passes out. She is awoken suddenly by thunder and lightning, only to find the fire still burning, but Matthias and Sam nowhere in sight. Panicked and worried for her friend, she shouts out Sam's name, scrambling to her feet, only to get her foot trapped in a bear trap. Unable to free herself, Lara is left to protect herself from attacking wolves. With the wolves dead, she tries desperately to unpry the trap, but just doesn't have the strength. As she shouts out in pain and frustration, other survivors, including Reyes, Jonah, Grimm, Alex, and Whitman, stumble across her location, helping to free her from the trap. Lara asks them frantically if they have seen Sam. Confused, they state they thought she was with Lara. Lara explains what happened and states that they have to find Sam. Whitman reminds them that they have to regroup with Roth as well. Lara and Whitman decide to break off from the main party and search for Roth, while the rest of the group set out to find Sam and Matthias. As Lara and Whitman explore, they discover that the island's inhabitants are worshipping Himiko, confirming that the island is in fact Yamatai. Upon discovering a shrine erected in Himiko's name, they are captured by the islanders and taken to a settlement along with several other survivors of the Endurance crew. When the survivors attempt an escape, the captors turn on them, hunting them down and killing them one by one. In the chaos, Lara is separated from Whitman and tries to sneak past the islanders, trying to hide in a hut. Unfortunately, she is found by Vladimir, one of the leaders of the inhabitants. Vladimir attacks Lara. Things look bad as Vladimir gropes and overpowers her, but unwilling to give in, she fights back, and in the resulting struggle is forced to kill him with his own weapon to save her own life. Staring at Vladimir's face, or what's left of it after the gunshot wound to the head, Lara is horrified at taking a life. She falls to her knees, nearly throwing up in her shock. As she struggles to her feet, Lara picks up Vladimir's gun and her own bow and makes her way through the burning village. Coming under attack, she defends herself, fighting off the remainder of the inhabitants as she desperately works her way up the mountainside to meet up with Roth. Using a combination of open combat and stealth, Lara works her way through the enemy camp and climbs up a chasm between two cliff faces, scrambling to the top, where she eventually locates an injured Roth in a nearby abandoned village, fighting off a pack of hungry wolves. She rushes to his side in relief and concern, helping him to a campsite. Roth tells Lara he left his transceiver in his bag in a cave, which they'll need to communicate with the outside world. Lara tells Roth to stay still and instead goes herself to retrieve the transceiver, having to kill the wolves guarding it in the process in order to recover it. Returning back to Roth, she finds him passed out. Using the first aid kit in his equipment bag, she patches up his injured leg. Roth eventually regains consciousness and the two sit by the fire. They discuss the plan to take the transceiver to a nearby radio tower and get a signal out to the wider world. Roth urges Lara that she will have to be the one to get the signal out, as he's not climbing that tower anytime soon. Lara disagrees, saying that she can't do it and is not as capable as Roth. Roth disagrees, stating,
"You can do it, Laura. After all, you're a Croft."
I don't think I'm that kind of Croft.
Sure you are. You just don't know it yet.
Using Roth's equipment, including a mean-looking climbing axe, Lara sets off for a communications relay at the very top of the mountain in hopes of contacting the outside world and calling for aid. She climbs her way up the mountain, demonstrating some impressive parkour skills and fighting her way through any enemies in her path. Climbing the communications tower, which would give anyone a serious case of vertigo, with a little instruction from Alex over the comms, Lara manages to successfully get a signal out, making contact with a nearby search and rescue plane that was searching for the Endurance crew and setting a signal fire for them to follow. As Lara looks up in joy and relief, shouting and waving at the rescue plane turning in her direction, she stares in horror as she witnesses a fierce storm materialize out of a clear sky and strike the plane down, accompanied by a mysterious voice saying, which means no one leaves in Japanese. Almost as if some strange supernatural force is trying to kill her, the plane, seemingly in slow motion, falls from the sky, aiming directly for her. Lara is left to scramble and slide down the mountainside, dodging and weaving desperately as debris falls around her, before throwing herself from a bridge, barely scrambling to safety. Feeling responsible for the fate of the pilots, Lara tracks their position, hoping to rescue them, but is powerless to stop the island's inhabitants from killing one of the surviving pilots. She regroups with Roth and tells him about the storm and what she saw, unable to explain it. Suddenly, a message comes through her radio from the other surviving pilot asking for help. Roth encourages her to leave the pilot, that they must regroup and form another plan. Lara refuses, and Roth argues that she must learn to make sacrifices in order to survive, but she refuses to listen and sets off to follow the pilot's smoke signal. Lara, along the way, is contacted by Alex and Reyes, who reveal that Sam has been taken by the island's inhabitants in the direction of an old Japanese palace. Lara spots the plane's surviving pilot in front of what looks like temple ruins, but before she can rescue him, she is foiled by Matthias, who orders her killed. As she is thrown back by exploding barrels and gunfire, things look bad for Lara, but she is saved thankfully by the intervention of strange samurai-like creatures referred to by the islanders as Oni, demons in Japanese folklore, and taken to an ancient monastery in the mountains, where she wakes up hung upside down for the second time. Escaping again, Lara sneaks her way through the monastery, climbing over dead bodies, skulls and bones, and stumbling into a ritual chamber where she finds the remains of Himiko, the first Sun Queen, and where she learns that a fire ritual was used to choose the Sun Queen's successor as part of a ceremony called the Ascension. Lara narrowly escapes the monastery, having to fight and climb her way through this windswept temple. Lara is forced to flee an attacking Oni that seems more monster than man, only barely managing to escape the temple as it crumbles away beneath her and she falls into a lake, battered and bruised. Laying exhausted on a small island by the lake, a terrified Sam manages to contact Lara and informs her that the Solari Brotherhood, a violent cult that worship Himiko, have kidnapped her and intend to put her through the fire ritual, which will burn her to death if it is unsuccessful. Sam pleads with Lara to help her, scared of her captors and what they want to do to her. Lara tries to reassure Sam, promising that she is coming for her, not to worry. Lara makes for the Solari fortress, having to navigate a treacherous river along the way, resulting in a swim downstream and a crazily dangerous paraglide through the forest, which leads to a none-too-gentle landing, though it places Lara closer to the Solari fortress. Now seriously wounded from the fall, Lara is forced to make her way through an enemy camp towards a nearby helicopter for medical supplies. Healing her wound using a burning arrow, Lara fights her way through the fortress using her newly crafted fire arrows to cause some pretty serious destruction and chaos among her enemies. Unexpectedly, she finds Grim and uses a cargo transport system to get to his location, but the Solari capture the latter and threaten to murder him unless she surrenders. Grim attempts to overpower them, but is killed in the process. Lara is forced to watch horrified as her friend falls to his death. She is almost killed herself while climbing along a rope until Roth intervenes, saving her life with some well-aimed sniper shots. With his support, Lara is able to infiltrate the palace, crossing the connecting bridge. Now inside, she witnesses Matthias putting Sam through the fire ritual. Lara interrupts the ritual by trying to save Sam, but she is overpowered by Matthias and his men. They hold her captive and force her to watch as they begin the ritual. Sam, however, is not harmed by the flames, which are extinguished by a great gust of wind, marking her as the rightful successor to the Sun Queen's throne. Lara narrowly escapes captivity once again, fighting her way free and jumping into a river below, a river that runs red with the blood and remains of the Solari's victims. Wading through the river, Lara doubles back, making her way through an underground cave system made unstable by very flammable unnatural gas, where she comes across her friends, whose attempts to reach Sam have resulted in their capture. Using the explosive nature of the natural gas, she manages to free them, though causing the floor to fall away below her and separating her from her friends. She tells them to get to safety and that she will find Whitman and Sam by herself. Now alone, Lara flees the crumbling caves and makes her way into a burning fortress. She runs through the burning rooms and climbs the crumbling walls and roofs in search for Sam. Dodging explosions and fleeing guards along the way, everything is in chaos as the palace burns around her. She stumbles across Whitman, surprised to see him alone and unharmed. Asking him what happened, Whitman tries to explain that he has managed to negotiate some degree of freedom with the Solari. Letting Whitman leave to find help, Lara returns to the palace to rescue Sam. She finds her friend arguing with Matthias. Matthias is obsessed with the Sun Queen and the ritual, and he voices his certainty that the only way to get off the island is by sacrificing Samantha to the Sun Queen. He believes the secret lies in her blood, Sam being a descendant of Himiko, and that this will put an end to the storms that kept them trapped on the island. Leaving Sam with a guard as he leaves to plan their escape, Lara waits for him to leave and then kills the guards, rescuing Sam. The two hug, relieved to see each other alive. As they make their way through the fortress, Roth commandeers a helicopter to get them out. Getting separated from Sam due to falling debris and having witnessed a storm that forced the search plane to crash, Lara sends Sam to escape by land and tries to rescue the helicopter herself by literally jumping on board and forcing the pilot to land as a second storm forms, striking the helicopter and forcing them to crash. Lara is nearly killed in the accident but is revived by Roth. However, Matthias and the Solari arrive at the crash site and Roth is killed by a tomahawk meant for Lara. While mourning over Roth, Lara accepts that the storms are not natural, but are somehow connected to the Sun Queen and designed to prevent anyone from leaving the island. She meets up with the other survivors who have evaded the Solari long enough to secure a boat for escaping the island, providing that it can be repaired. They are devastated by the death of Roth, and Reyes particularly takes the news hard, taking out her grief and anger on Lara, blaming her for his death. As the crew makes their way to the beach and their boat, Lara stays behind with Roth, needing more time to say goodbye to her mentor. Strengthening her resolve and remembering Roth's words of encouragement, after some time she makes her way down the mountainside, arriving at the beach and regrouping with her friends. They are joined by Whitman, who claims to have escaped, though Lara begins to suspect him of working with the cultists. Lara heads for the wreckage of the Endurance to meet up with Alex, who had previously gone there to salvage the tools needed for Reyes to repair the boat. She finds him trapped under wreckage, and as she attempts to free him, they come under attack by the Solari. Alex decides to trigger an explosion and sacrifice himself so that Lara can escape with the tools. As she makes her way back to her friends, she finds an account of a World War II era Japanese military expedition to the island that sought a way to harness the power of the storms as a weapon. Lara decides to explore an ancient tomb on the coast, where she finds the remains of a high-ranking samurai who had committed seppuku, or ritual suicide. It is revealed in a message he left that he was the general of the Queen's Stormguard, the Oni that defend the monastery, and that the Queen's successor took her own life rather than receive the Sun Queen's power, leaving the Sun Queen trapped in her body after death, and her rage has manifested in the form of the storms. Lara realizes that the Ascension is not a ceremony to crown a new queen, but rather a ritual that transfers the original Sun Queen's soul into a new body, and that the process will destroy the host's soul. Himiko's spirit wants to escape its current body, and Matthias plans to offer Sam as a new host. Lara returns to the survivors on the beach. Hearing gunfire, she rushes to their aid to see Reyes and Jonah fighting off Solari mercenaries. She discovers from Reyes that Whitman has betrayed them, abducting Sam and handing her over to Matthias in order to save his own skin. Lara, Jonah and Reyes give chase in the repaired boat, heading inland up a river to the monastery. Lara arrives just in time to see Whitman killed by the Oni as he tries to reason with them in his arrogance. After fighting her way through the Queen's guards and scaling a tall ice cliff face to a very aggressive storm, Lara arrives at the top of the monastery in time to see Matthias start the Ascension ritual. She works her way towards Matthias, confronting Solari and guards alike. Now close to Sam and the body of Himiko, she tries to shoot and destroy the Queen, but is stopped before she can release her shot. Fighting with Matthias, Lara kills him when she shoots him from the roof of the monastery using 2 pistols, sending him plunging into the abyss below before destroying Himiko's remains to save Sam. Lara then carries a weakened Sam down the mountain, regrouping with the others. And with the storms dispersed, Lara, Sam, Reyes and Jonah leave the island and are picked up by a cargo ship. As she and her friends sail home, Lara decides that there are many more myths to be found and resolves to uncover them, stating that she isn't returning home just yet. And this is where the story concludes at the end of the first game. So this is the end of my first story so far video for the Tomb Raider series. My next video will outline the events of the second game, Rise of the Tomb Raider. Hope you guys found this video interesting and informative. If you did, please leave a like, comment and share. And if you liked the video and would like to see more, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to find out about any future uploads. Hope you all have a great week. Take care. And as always, happy gaming. Bye guys.